Good morning and good evening and good night to all of you out there in the world. This is Rodnesha Green here with my amazing co-host, Callie Thomas.
Hello.
And we are bringing you another episode of the You Are, a Severance podcast.
Ooh.
All right. We are here to talk about another kind of like isolated in a specific time, place, and character episode that is called Sweet Vitriol. This is episode 8. And this is where we're going to get into what's going on with Miss Cobel, as we hinted at, I believe, last episode.
Yeah, you called it.
To be fair, I was given a heads up about it. Apparently, It's because there's, I think either in Japan or China, the subtitles were different, and it straight up just said it's Cobel that they're following.
Oh, that's so funny.
So then a friend of mine at work who is like on Chinese, like their TikTok or whatever, she was the one.
Oh,
you know, and I was like, oh, she's like, oh yeah, next episode is Miss Cobel. And I was like, how do you know? She's like, because it says in the description. I was like,
they're like, oh, it definitely doesn't say that in the description here.
Very vague here. But yeah.
I mean, we have been saying the next episode's got to be Miss Cobel for like 3 episodes.
We're
going to be right eventually.
And we are. So before we get into the episode, this episode was so interesting to me because we're essentially exploring a ghost town, right? Like we're here, False Neck, and this town, as we come to see, is pretty much abandoned, save a few people. I would guess maybe there's like tens of people in this town.
Yeah.
And so that just had me thinking about like company towns and ghost towns and how did they get like that? What happens? All this other stuff. And I just started doing some research to see, like, is that something we still kind of see in modern day? Because I know that it happened a lot early 1700s, 1800s, like gold rush time era.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, does that still happen? Is that still happening that much? And apparently it is. So I just wanted to give you, and those of you listening, some, I don't want to call them fun facts because they're not fun.
Fun.
I know what else to call them, but some interesting facts, some random facts about company towns and ghost towns around the United States. So let's start with just a pretty simple one. According to data from the U.S. Census of Migration Patterns and the National Association of Realtors, they did a study. These are the following towns that have the most potential to become the next ghost towns in America. And they are Augusta, Georgia, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, St. Louis, Missouri, Detroit, Michigan, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, New Orleans, Louisiana, Houston, Texas, San Francisco, California, and Scranton, Pennsylvania. So some of these surprised me to see on the list, but then when you think about how these towns become these towns, I can see it with a few places, right?
Detroit makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Motor City, like
they've been on the bubble.
That's been a ongoing problem there with the factory shutdowns and the jobs leaving. I feel like New Orleans, I immediately just think about like
disasters,
never fully recovering from Katrina, right? But when I saw San Francisco, I was like, what?
That was the one that got me too.
It's because it's so expensive there?
I think it's a combination of expense. I think it's the fact that San Francisco has become a company town in that it has really rallied around the tech industry, right?
Right.
And if the tech industry goes bust, then, you know, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. And I don't know how much
people lose jobs to AI.
Exactly.
And already everybody that works there doesn't live there. Like they all commute.
Yeah.
It's a huge commuter city.
Yeah. So it's going to be, and I think that's what a lot of these, because they said the National Association of Realtors, I think a lot of these stats are based on like the percentage at which people are leaving the city or like, you know, not becoming homeowners, downsizing home ownership, things like that.
Yeah.
That kind of give a little insight, I guess, into how the population is dwindling year over year.
Yeah, that's wild.
So if you guys heard your city in that list, watch out.
Right. Start prepping, I guess.
Maybe
figure out where to move.
Relocations. I don't know. Okay.
Get a remote job.
Exactly. So number 2 on my fact list is about Centralia, Pennsylvania. And it says Centralia, Pennsylvania is a ghost mining town that has been on fire since 1962.
Wait.
So if anyone is near that area, they may already know about this, but it's Centralia was a mining town Used to be very thriving, and it became uninhabitable due to an underground mine that caught fire. Now, I did some more research. It didn't just catch fire. This is a result of improper waste disposal. And the people of the town, I think they were getting ready for some kind of town anniversary or some kind of celebratory thing. And they were like, we got all this waste product we got to get rid of. Let's just burn it.
Oh.
So they set it on fire, and then that connected to all these coal tunnels, apparently, that then caught fire, and the whole underground of the city just was burning. And so it became untenable for the residents, and they had to relocate everybody. This happened in the 80s. And apparently that fire is still burning underground, and it's causing a lot of like environmental impacts in the area. But yeah, 1962.
What? Yeah. 63 years. It's been burning for 63 years. Sorry, that took me way too long to do that math in my head.
You bothered to do the math. I didn't even try.
I need a physics person to explain that to me.
This is a very pared down. I did read a few articles that was trying to explain it, and I was like, this would take too long to try to distill it down. Right. So if you guys just Google Centralia, Pennsylvania, you will find plenty of articles.
This sounds like a documentary I would watch, and now I need to see if one exists already. I need to find it.
Actually, yes, I would watch this too. So my fact number 3 says ghost town doesn't always mean a town that is totally abandoned. So in this instance, we are talking about Youngstown, Ohio. What I found out about Youngstown is that it used to be, again, another company town. I believe it was GM. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very highly concentrated GM factories in this area. Everybody pretty much was being provided jobs from this one company. Manufacturing jobs start downsizing around the 80s. So what's interesting about this is the impact that this job loss has had. And so when I say that ghost town doesn't always mean totally abandoned, it's essentially just the loss of these jobs and thus reduction in economic status and affordability and all these things leads to typically in poverty-stricken areas, a lot of violent crime, a lot of drug use, and a lot of health problems. So Youngstown is now known for all the violent crimes and drug trades that are happening in the city. In 2013, the city had 6,000 vacant buildings. One of the economic facts is deindustrialization of the area, and that has led to people abandoning the town. And this led to a loss of tax revenue to pay for police, fire, health services at a time when violence and crime was on the rise. And this is coinciding with opioid deaths, heart attacks, domestic violence, prostitution, homelessness, and food insecurity.
Yeah, when you were describing it, I was like, this sounds like one of the opioid towns.
Too. Yeah.
Now, I have watched a lot of documentaries
about that. Very true. So again, it's just interesting that when these cities revolve so highly around one industry or one company, how much of an impact that loss can have. And when people think about these poverty-stricken areas and think that it just has to do with people's like will to work or all these other things, it's like, no, when money leaves, that's when problems happen. And just the fact that they said like they didn't have enough tax revenue to pay for the government services that would stabilize a city, fire and police and health services.
Crazy.
So my number 4 fact is about Flint, Michigan. It is titled Flint, Michigan, ... the next Gilman, Colorado. I say that because most of us know about Flint and the water crisis that's happening there.
Yeah.
May not know that Flint was another company town employed by, guess who? GM. And in the 70s, which was kind of the peak for this town, GM employed 80,000 people for their manufacturing plant that was in Flint. And when GM downsized, it led to a lot of job losses. And then currently they only employ 7,200 people. So they went from 80,000 to 7,200. And the population of Flint thus decreased by 50%. And the ongoing water crisis, which has been caused by lead-tainted drinking water, that's not necessarily pertaining to the manufacturing. It's just a result, but because of the financial instability, economic instability, obviously they can't combat this issue. So I bring that up because a similar occurrence happened in Gilman, Colorado. They were a mining town at one point, very big. I think it started like way back in the 1800s. People went out there initially to mine for silver, and then it became a zinc and lead mining town.
Okay.
In 1984, Gilman was found to have very toxic water contamination, and this was actually due to the mining operations. And that year, the EPA stepped in and said, this water is untenable, and thus we cannot allow people to say it's that bad. People cannot stay in this town. And everyone in the town was forced to evacuate immediately.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere that they maybe had 48 hours to like get their stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I believe it became a Superfund site. The EPA kind of like turned it into Superfund and was just kind of holding that land for decades. And I believe in the 2000s, a different company came in and tried to buy the land and repurpose it,
What?
clear the land, restore it, do all this stuff. But apparently this happened right around the recession.
Oh,
So then that went bust too. So
sheesh.
there was going to be an effort to restore the town. And then the people that bought it was like, oh, and now we're in a recession and we can't afford it anymore.
Like,
So
we don't have that money no more.
so now Gilman is literally just a ghost town. And then they said that there's a lot of these houses where you can see things like people have fled in a hurry.
Right. So just
and just
left.
all these remnants. All right. And then my fifth fact, we're going to end on a more positive note. Didn't want to leave us with all the bad and the bleh. So this is about Newton, Iowa, and it's called A Case for Diversification. So Newton, Iowa has been through a bit of a resurgence. It started off as a company town as well for Maytag appliances. That was a big label for washing machines. I believe they established their plant in Newton in 1893. And so they were very proud of this big booming business that was in their town. They called themselves the washing machine capital of the world. Super excited. Everybody's got jobs. We're all doing great. And then, of course, 2006, Whirlpool buys Maytag. Maytag closes their plant in Newton, Iowa. And now people don't have jobs. So this is usually the typical pattern, right, of the formation of a ghost town. But fortunately, there were enough people in the area that were like, okay, we need to figure out how we can maybe bounce back. So some assemblymen and different people in the community formed the Newton Transformation Council to discuss possible revitalization efforts. And they had to take some hits. They had a lot of economic loss for a number of years, but they were still trying to figure out, like, how do we get business back in?
Yeah.
Eventually, it did pan out that a company called TPI Composites decided to move their wind turbine facilities into Newton. So then they were able to repurpose some of those Maytag plants to now be suited to do wind turbines. That then attracted some more business from another place called Acorsa Wind Towers. So now Newton is the like number one place for wind turbine and kind of that whole industry. But having learned the lesson the first time, let's not put all our eggs in one industry basket. So they said, no, let's still try to diversify this portfolio. Okay, let's try to attract some more business. So now they went from being a single industry town to now having diversified their economic base with companies like Iowa Speedway, Springboard Engineering, Global Fiberglass, REG, Biodiesel, Advanced Wheel Sales, and Hawkeye Stages, to name a few. So in 2017, their unemployment rate went from 9.6% in 2008 down to 2.5%, which ended up being under the state average in Iowa, which was 2.9%. So,
wow.
A hopeful note, you know, you can learn the lesson. You don't have to become Salt's Neck. If you have enough people in the will, and I don't know what else you might need, but you can bounce back from becoming a ghost. And that, you guys, is all I have regarding ghost company towns in America.
Good research.
But yeah, that's it.
All right.
I'm ready to move on if you are.
Well, yeah, I was like, shall we get into this summary?
Yeah.
So this week, we take a detour from Lumen's halls and follow Harmony Cobel back to her hometown of Salt's Neck, a place once thriving under Lumen's ether production, but now little more than a ghost town. While on the hunt for some object of importance, she reconnects with an old acquaintance who we later come to know as Hampton and is forced to confront a frigid family member, her zealot Aunt Sissy. This episode peels back the layers of Cobel's past, revealing what shaped her unshakable devotion to Lumen. And in a final gut punch, we learn the truth. Cobel isn't just a loyal servant of the company. She is the true architect of Severance itself.
Crazy. I'm still not past it, but we'll get there.
You know, anyone, and I'm sure you've heard you've been seeing the reactions. Anyone who is calling this episode a filler episode, how can you call like the biggest lore drop that we have had across these two seasons? You know, like this definitely, I feel like edges out the Gemma as Miss Casey reveal.
Yeah.
How can you call that a filler?
You know what I think it is? I think people are spoiled.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the show has spoiled some people and they just think, every episode needs to be a 2-hour cataclysmic, throw you across the floor, knock down, drag out fight. These episodes are important. I had plenty to digest with these 37 minutes. And again, this is big information to get about Harmony Cobel.
Right.
So whatever, these people can go kick rocks that say it's a filler episode. You can go kick rocks. It's officially from me.
The show's not for you anyway. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of this show, let's talk about our cast this episode. So we have guest starring in the episode, Jane Alexander as Celestine Sissy Cobel. We have James LaGrosse as Hampton. And then our co-stars for this episode are Jerry Stahl as Magnus, Emma Troke as Dot, Claire Coulter as Rose, Dawn Tripe as Ether Addict, and as always, Mark Geller, who we see prominently displayed on yet another mantle as Kier, Chosen One, Kier Egan. This episode was written by Adam County and Casey Perry, and it was directed by our fearless leader, Ben Stiller. And I also wanted to give a special shout out this episode to some other people who were part of the production, and I think a very important part of the production this episode. So shout out to Ryan Smith, who is the location manager, Jeremy Hindle, who is the production designer, and Jessica Lee Gagne, who is the cinematographer. They essentially were responsible for finding this amazing location to film this whole episode. And I don't know if y'all know, but location scouting ain't easy. And add to that, Ben Stiller, who is very, very specific about wanting to find places that aren't overly used in films and TV, right? And I think this is a very iconic looking place that we shot in. Like, you aren't going to find this kind of location just everywhere. And apparently Jessica Lee Gagne was the one who had the idea for this place because she shot an indie film in Fogo Island, which is near this Bonavista town, which is whatever, in Newfoundland. I just wanted to call that out and shout them out because they are doing brilliant work this season. And I know we haven't talked about it in other episodes, but we had Woes Hollow was a great on location, and this is another great on location. So I just had to give them props. Had to.
Right.
All right. Well, with that said, let's do this.
Let's do it. Let's get into our cold open.
I see what you did.
So waves crash and birds sail overhead as we follow a familiar tiny white car down a winding coastal highway amidst an icy panoramic view. The car is speeding along and we see it pass a decaying sign that says Salt's Neck. Thanks for visiting. Based on the sign's upkeep, it's safe to say that wherever the intrepid Harmony Cobel is heading, it has likely seen better days. We hear the minor chords of an ominous piano rendition of Kier, Chosen One, Kier as Cobel passes snow-covered boathouses and decaying piers. The town appears to be both physically and metaphorically frozen in time. Another panoramic view brings the entire bay of Salt's Neck into focus, where we can see some faded imprints of the Lumen logo etched in various buildings. And the scene fades to white as we see the show title bar fade in.
So the cold open was mostly scenes, right? Not a lot of dialogue, I don't think we even see Harmony's face, right? We just see that car zipping around the highway.
Yeah.
But I still found this to be an interesting cold open, just with the establishing shots that they gave. This area, literally, I felt chilly just watching this scene, maybe a little more than even when we were doing the Woes Hollow episode. And I don't know if it's because it's by the sea. And so you've got that ocean breeze chill mixed in with this icy climate and these snow-capped mountains. And I don't know, but I just was like,
that's interesting that you say that, because I felt chill, not in the literal sense, but in the
creepy,
ominous is afoot here. And it felt just the drive up and the wide shots gave me Hitchcocky vibes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I was like, what's about to happen here?
Maybe that subconsciously was part of it. I for sure felt what you're saying about the Hitchcocky vibe in that one view of the car driving down the freeway. Yep.
Yeah.
And it definitely made me think of The Shining, that opening part of there where you see the Torrances driving up in Colorado, which actually, sorry, The Shining is Kubrick, not Hitchcock.
Yeah,
but
not Hitchcock.
But same oogie, spooky.
Yeah.
Like you're just seeing this one lone thing moving amidst dead stillness, and it's very disorienting. So I joked about it, but I'm going to say it again. I joked about it last episode, but the thing that came to my head, I was like, man, Lumen is really giving the White Witch from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like just froze this town and just always winter, never Christmas, no joy. And it's like, it's so dead. This town is so dead. Yeah. We've seen not one person. And it's funny that you have the background that you have, because one thing that I always found interesting in that opening shot where they come up over the ridge and you see the town is that ice blocked off on one side of the bay. And then the other side is just like free flowing cold water. But just seeing that ice kind of trapped almost made me think about how this town has also just kind of been trapped. There's no free flow. There's no.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah. I think Patricia Arquette, I don't remember if it was in an interview or on this week's podcast with Ben and Adam, but she had mentioned that like the town is like almost like encapsulated, like it's surrounded with just like icebergs.
Makes sense.
So she's like, it's cold. There's icebergs just floating around while you drive up there.
I just couldn't imagine living someplace. And like, this is a real town.
Yeah.
People probably live here, right? Any other day. I actually looked up this town just generally to see more about it. And the images that are on Google are way different than what we're seeing here. Now, this is clearly wintertime, right?
Right.
But in the summer, it is green. It is lush. It looks amazing. So I'd love to come there in the summer. Right now, during this time, no thanks.
No.
Hard pass. Oh, okay. That's all I wanted to say about.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we return to see a haggard-looking Harmony Cobel diligently brushing her teeth outside of her car. A groan from behind catches her attention, and she whips around to see a bundled-up person sitting in the doorway of a rusted trailer home. The person reaches for a bottle, which he sprinkles the contents of onto an item in his hand. Then he drops said items into a paper bag, and he looks up briefly to spy Harmony spying on him. Harmony continues to look on without flinching or breaking stride from brushing her teeth, and the man drops his gaze and begins to huff the contents of the bag. Harmony finishes her hygienic task and then hears her phone buzzing from inside her car. She looks and the caller ID reads, Devin Scout. And she ignores it, gives the stranger one last glance as he reclines in a high, hazy delight. We then find ourselves inside a diner where we see an older blue-haired woman sitting at the bar top with an oxygen line running out of her nose. Another diner, not nearly as old, but equally weary in appearance, discussing a local snowplow incident with the waiter. And the waiter then slips the man a concealed bottle stating it's, quote, on the house. He returns to Rose to refill her coffee and compliment her on her new do. And just then we see Harmony pull up in front of said diner, and we see from the outside that it is called the Drippy Pot Cafe. Harmony enters with an icy stare and takes a seat while maintaining eye contact with said waiter. It appears he knows exactly who she is, and he goes to her table but says nothing. Harmony decides to speak for him. Harmony Cobel, well, flip my toboggan. And he sternly responds, asking if she wants coffee. After a cold exchange between the two, Harmony cuts to the chase and tells the man she needs a favor, but she can't tell him there and asks him to meet her at the factory to find out what. She exits, and not more than a beat after she does, the man tells Dot to close up for him, and he rushes to his truck. Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy, Harmony. Is she loved everywhere she goes?
Yep. Oh, man.
All right, so the brushing the teeth thing, I mean... One thing I can say for Harmony, having had the upbringing she's had and being a Lumen soldier, is this lady will rough it. She knows how to rough it. She's been sleeping in her car. I do appreciate, though, that despite being on the run, she refuses to let her hygiene habits slip, right?
Yeah, gotta brush some teeth.
When I first watched the episode, the very first time through, I was thinking when she saw the man like huffing, I couldn't tell if she was intrigued or like upset or like kind of finger wagging, or I don't know. I couldn't get the vibe. And then, of course, in rewatching, I was like, oh, she's seen this before. This is not new.
My thought was like, she's like, oh, that's why I left. That's exactly why I left here. That was my first take.
That does ring true of like the hometown that's like a little less than desirable. And you're like, I got to get out of here.
Right. You're like, yeah,
it's time to go.
Nothing changes, unfortunately.
All right. Devin.
Yeah.
Called.
Yeah.
So now we have it confirmed, right?
Yeah. So my first thought when she called was like, oh, okay. So she did really scare Ragabi away. Because I know we had some question in the last episode.
Is she gone? Is she not?
Did she leave? Or did she just like storm out of the room? Because as she left, she said, don't call that woman.
Right.
So it was like, kind of like, hey, if you don't call her, then I'm still in it. But nah, she had really left. Yeah. And then I think also at this point, I was wondering, I was like, oh, did this happen while Mark was still
journeying? Yeah.
Yeah. Is this all after he wakes up? Which I think I decide it is once we get to that point later in the episode. But at this point, I was like, maybe she's still like freaking out and he's not awake at this point.
I wasn't sure about that either. But like you said, by the end, I was like, okay, I think this is all once Mark wakes up.
Right.
Or has come out of his journeying, dreaming situation, coma situation. Because obviously we didn't see it during that episode. And that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But it seems a little more like she'd be calling that frequently once it's like Mark is awake versus while it's going.
Right. And I was like, yeah. So they have probably, at this point she's filled Mark in and he realizes that like they don't have any other choice.
Yeah. So this was the first of apparently many reach out attempts. So I saw your note later on going down into the diner about the coffee.
Right. Because he's like, the seats are only for paying customers. And she's like, well, buy me a coffee. He proceeds to pour the coffee. And then she's like, bye. I was like, Harmony, you just petty for no reason.
Petty. And as a coffee drinker and coffee enjoyer, I was like, what a waste of a cup. What a waste of a good warm cup of coffee. You could at least took it with you. She just left it there. Oh, what a waste. So this mystery waiter, potentially diner owner guy.
Yeah.
He's obviously about to go on this journey. I was honestly a little shocked at how quick he just said, okay, let me run out the door and see what Harmony wants.
Right.
For as much of a like hesitation he was giving to like engage with her.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
I was thinking that too. And then I was also like, this is the highlight of his year. Nothing happens here. I also was like, yeah, he can just close up. He can just leave because these two that are here are probably the only two patrons that come.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
He probably just hangs out with Rose and who was the other guy all day long.
I guess that other guy's name was Magnus. We never heard his name in conversation, but yeah, they're probably the main two that show up. I was looking at some of the background stuff in the diner. I saw something about like bait and tackle sold here. So maybe he gets some fishermen coming in every so often from the pier. I guess it's just an all-purpose whatever.
Right. Or, it's all just a front for his drug dealing, right?
That's kind of sad now that I think about it. And it's an interesting contrast to see like the one guy being there who clearly is a customer in more ways than one of his. And this poor old Rose, sweet lady, who clearly has been impacted by the ether in a totally different way, right?
Yeah.
Or at least the factory producing this drug. I wonder if Rose worked. She probably did work in the factory, right? I'm sure everyone there did, right? If they weren't just staying at home.
Probably.
I did actually listen to Ben and Adam's podcast Friday, and they talked about how she was the one local actor that they found.
Actor, yeah.
I was like, cool. She's very natural. I liked her. I believed her 100%. She said, you can top me off anytime you like.
Her little smile. Yeah. Claire Coulter. I bet she does some awesome like community theater there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Probably been a staple of the community for who knows how long. Oh, everybody knows her. But yeah, so she was great. I loved it. Yeah, I don't know how towns like these continue to function. I think that was the other thing I thought as we're establishing everything is like, what are the jobs people are doing now? How are people getting by? Are they leaving town for work and then coming back here? Are they fishermen mostly? Because, they're near the water. How is the town afloat? Do they have a mayor? Like, what's the government like? I just have so many questions.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in situations like this too, like, for the people who are business owners like this, it becomes like it's a supply and demand situation and there's some bartering going on because he knows he can't expect anybody to really, for real, pay him consistently,
Yeah,
I bet.
probably.
And I'm sure there's a whole lot of like mending things on your own and like makeshift upkeep for a business.
Honestly, the inside of the diner looked neater than I expected, with the exception of like the fans kind of running everywhere, because I noticed some different like little wall unit fans placed in different spots. With the exception of that, like I was surprised at like the stuff in terms of like the dining ware. I was like, actually, a lot of this looks less rustic than I would expect. Like it looks pretty nice. Silverware looked polished, like the plates looked decent. Like he's presenting it neatly.
Again, what else he got to do all day but clean?
That's true. Oh no.
Like I may not be able to buy new silverware, but I can polish what I got.
Yeah. Idle hands and whatnot. All right.
Yeah. Okay. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. So as he heads to meet up with Harmony, the old familiar passes a brick building that says Kier Egan's Lumen Ether. There is a miracle cure for man. He then arrives at what appears to be an inactive factory, and it has the Lumen Industries logo on it, and Harmony is there waiting. So both of them seem hesitant to exit their vehicles at first, but after a few beats, Harmony gets out and stands in front of his truck, and the man reluctantly does the same. He remarks on how messed up it is that Harmony has asked him to meet her here, which implies some messy history with these two. And she sidesteps this and asks him to drive her to Sissy's. After a reaction of surprise, he declines to help, but Harmony explains that she needs his car in case Lumen is watching the house. He asks her how much trouble she's in, and Harmony simply replies, enough. So he then remarks that she still lives by the 9 Lumen values, which I did not get that right away, by the way, and that she's a town pariah because of it. And so he ends by asking Harmony why he should help her at all. And she says, we were once chums, old colleagues, lift each other up. And the man scoffs at this and replies, child labor. So Harmony then tells an anecdote of how Kier and Imogene met at the ether mill and that she can smell it on his breath and he's pathetic. She states that whether he helps or not, she won't be the punching dummy for his resentments. We then cut to the man driving away down the rugged coastline, and we see Harmony is tucked away in the cab of the truck. And while hidden under blankets, we see another call is coming from Devin, which she again ignores. Then the camera slowly zooms in on an isolated house on the other side of the bay, and it appears the place they're headed to is on the outskirts of town.
For the record, because I just wanted to look this up to clarify, in terms of child labor, 1938 is when the federal child labor provisions of the Fair Labor and Standards Act was passed. Obviously, it was enacted to ensure that young people's work is appropriately aged, safe, and does not jeopardize their health, well-being, or educational opportunities. 1 out of 3 ain't bad, I guess. Harmony did well on the education front. Okay. When I saw that part of the building, by the by, when he passed by it, I was like, oh. So that was my first clue, because I think when we first got here and saw Salt's Neck, and obviously that Lumen had factories there, I was trying to figure out, is this where Lumen started, or is this just one of the places where they built their factories? But based on that building, I was like, I think this is the origin of Lumen.
This is where it started.
This is where it started.
So too.
Yeah, because that building looks like one of those old 1800s wood brick buildings, and even that print on there looks like what you would see on buildings in that era. So I think this is where it all began, which is wild. So this man literally ran into town and ran the town into the ground. And left these people high and dry. But at the same time, if that is the case, then what? Lumen started in 1860 something, I want to say, and got through, well, we don't really know time right now, but I assume got through at least the 1970s or 80s, 70s maybe, if we're judging Harmony Cobel's age appropriately, which we're never quite sure of. But yeah, so they had a good run, I suppose. So when I want to call him Hampton because now we know his name, but much like last week with the dentist, I'm just like, I kind of also want to just be like mystery guy, because
mystery guy. We didn't know who he was until the very end. Yeah.
But yeah, so when he shows up at the factory and they start talking, I immediately was like, what is the history here?
Yeah.
I remember at first when Harmony came into the cafe, I was trying to determine if maybe he was a relative or not. And I was like, is he a relative? Is he a friend? What is he? Is he an ex-husband? What is he?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That was my first question that I said out loud when she entered the diner. I was like, is this her husband that she talked about? Did she actually really have a husband when she was telling stories about him
he was dead.
Miss Selvig? Or I'm not sure if she actually has, if she's never been married or whatever, but I was like, oh, is this an ex-husband?
Right. But there's definitely energy there that's like there's a very close familial history here that isn't just like, I knew this guy in town, blah, blah, blah. But I just love how even in this journey that Harmony is taking to find herself, find this thing, what have you, that she still can't let go of that Lumini language, right? So the fact that she's like, we're old chums. I was like, chums, Harmony, chums, old colleagues, lift each other up. I was like, okay, all right, you just can't. Oh boy, it's in you. It's just in you. And even the way he was looking at her, like, be for real. Talk plain and straight. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I also found it interesting that I feel like she was fairly convinced that he was going to do the favor, even though he was putting up hesitation. And that's what made me wonder what their relationship was. Because I'm like, I feel like she's like, I know you're going to say yes. And we got to do this whole, I hate you, you hate me thing.
Right.
Because the fact that she was like, fine, I just need your truck, whatever.
It echoes the confusion we had about and we never got an answer to it, right? About what Cobel and Grainer's relationship was why he owed her so much. It seemed like he never turned her in because of something she had done in the past. And I get a similar feeling here where it's not just a connection we learned because of the ether mill,
right?
But something else has happened that she's like, well, you owe it to me anyway, so I'll quit playing and let's just do this.
Do you wonder if Grainer was also part of this child labor factory bit? Like if he goes back with Harmony all the way back to this, maybe?
All the way back to here.
Or if they were both, oh no, he couldn't have been at the Myrtle Egan school because that was for girls. But do you think they had a companion boys school? And maybe
I'm sure they did.
That would be interesting. And we'll never know because Grainer's dead.
Right.
But let's see. You wanted to talk about the Radium Girls.
Oh yeah, I mean, just as soon as he said child labor in the ether meals, and then he made the crack about when she said, you have the quote here, when she said Kira and Imogen met at the ether mill, you know that, and he was like, was she hacking up a lung at that time? I was like, it's the Radium Girls again. It's the Radium Girls. And I always thought that when they showed the picture of Imogen literally stirring the huge vat, I was like, that
the fumes,
steam or whatever that is coming up off of that, the fumes coming off of that are killing that woman. I just know they are, right? Like, and it always makes me think of the Radium Girls, where these women were women and children, right? Because a lot of them were young, were licking the radium, licking the
pens or whatever,
paintbrush, because it made the radium stick better, and then licking it again, and then painting the numbers on the watches. And just dipping in, just consuming,
slowly killing themselves.
And they were dying horrible deaths. Like, it was making their teeth fall out. They were losing like pieces of their jaws. They were losing their tongues. Their noses were falling off. Like, it was terrible. It was horrific. And when he said that about hacking up a lung, I was like, so much is romanticized in the telling of Kier's life that I'm like, what was really going on? Right?
So when you said that, and even some of the stuff we said before, I started thinking to myself, like, we don't know what the end of Imogen's story is, right? We've only heard about how they met, how they fell in love, working together as colleagues and coworkers and blah, blah, blah. Do you think maybe the genesis of about this work methodology and ethic, thus becoming a cult, maybe is the result of her dying from the work? And thus he had to just like idolize the work and make it more dominant, more important to cope with the loss of his loved one from the work. Like, I'm starting to wonder if really that's the genesis of all this. It's like, to explain away how awful it is that this industry robbed me of my one true love, I have to thus make the industry super important, almost God, so that it makes it okay.
Right, so it's worth it. Justify it. Yeah. To combat his cognitive dissonance about like, and that would lend itself to the end goal of Severance, the idea that the end goal of the Severance is severance for that reason too, which we talked about a little bit as one of the theories last week. Very interesting.
Yeah. And this, again, one day I am going to make a video. I still have to gather my thoughts about that fourth appendix thing, because I really do think there's more to this fourth appendix Kier book And I think some of the pieces are maybe being woven in the narrative and the history of Lumen, but I got to get my thoughts together before I do that. Anything else we want to discuss in this little moment?
No.
All right, cool. So on to our next section. There's no place like home. I just had to say the title. So the quote, old familiar and Harmony pull up to this slightly dilapidated 2-story home, and Harmony seems to be unsettled by the journey, calling him higher than a bearded vulture. So clearly she got a little car sick. He yells out as she walks away from him towards the house, "Tell her to drop dead for me." Before Harmony can even knock on the door, it opens and a matronly looking woman older than Harmony is standing there in a dated white nightgown with reading glasses hanging from her neck. The woman tells Harmony immediately that she's not welcome, but Harmony barrels past her anyway and races upstairs. She goes straight to a bedroom that appears to have once been hers based on the height markers on the doorframe. But now it is completely empty, bed stripped, walls bare, except for one lone plushie on a shelf. While Harmony searches, the woman below continues to protest as Harmony stops at her height chart to reflect. The last recorded age we see is 12, so either Harmony stopped growing, she no longer wanted to track her height, or this is the age when she was sent away to the Myrtle Egan School for Girls. Upon exiting her room, she passes a Lumen placard that says quarterly striver dash fourth quarter year of vision, youth apprentice matron, Celestine, quote, Sissy Cobel. Harmony stares at the door and tries to open it, but it's locked. Harmony storms downstairs and asks Sissy what she's done with her things. Sissy says she sold them to the poor. Harmony asks if anyone has been by the house or telephone, and Sissy says a Mr. Drummond called, asking Harmony, "What have you done, little mouse?" This infuriates Cobel, who goes to the phone and rips the cord out the back and demands the key to her mother's room. She then tells Sissy that it is she who cursed the house with woe because Sissy accused this of Harmony. And they go back and forth, and finally Harmony asks what her mother's last words were. Sissy refuses to answer, and Harmony further needles Sissy about remaining silent while she pulled the tube from her mother's gullet. And this moves Sissy to strike Harmony across the face. Harmony's face turns childlike as she lowers her gaze. Sissy collects herself and tells Harmony her eyes were grateful to be freed of suffering, but is remiss that Charlotte wasn't a believer. Harmony says she would have cared for her if she hadn't been at school, but Sissy maintains that school is where she belonged. Harmony remarks that she didn't even get to say goodbye, but Sissy says her studies were more important because Mr. Egan saw cure in her. She also mentions the Wintertide Fellowship, but ultimately calls Harmony a disappointment and tells her to go back to the Egans and plead for forgiveness. She asks again for the key, and Sissy simply strokes a smooth stone in her hand that has Kier's woeful face drawn on it. I don't like her. I don't like Sissy. It was so funny to hear that too. So when they first mentioned it in the last scene, I immediately thought, because my sisters call me Sissy.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought maybe she was referencing going to her sister's house. I was like, oh,
I thought it was older sister. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was like, does she have a sister?
First.
And then when she got there, I thought it could possibly still be an older sister, but a much, much older sister. And I was like, well, maybe she's not a sister. Maybe she's a caretaker. I still couldn't quite figure out who she was until I saw the placard. And then I was like, okay, so she is a relative, but clearly not a sister, right?
Yeah, I think I just was like sister until she started being like your mother. And I was like, so maybe she's her aunt. But then I also was like, or your mother, because her mother wasn't devout and she just doesn't call her mother anymore. Yeah. So that still wasn't confirmation to me that she wasn't a sister, but
it took the whole episode for me to kind of like fully solidify, okay, I think that's her aunt. And then of course it was confirmed in the after show because Ben Stiller mentioned it there, and I was like, okay, so it was her aunt. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got this lady in here. She's just cold chilling in this house that again looks very dilapidated. Clearly she's just maintaining status quo. We haven't upkept it. And as our guy said in the previous scene, she is a town pariah. Yeah. So she's clearly out here on the edges of town just living. This little placard, I was like, I could try to look up definitions for these words, but it won't matter because everything in lumen means something different. So I was like, I don't know what a quarterly striver is supposed to be. A youth apprentice matron. I assume maybe like we were saying just before, maybe she was a mentor type figure.
Yeah, that's where I got that from. Because I'm thinking, and this is why I still wasn't sure if she was an aunt or, she might be closer in age to Cobel than one of those situations, closer to Cobel than she was to her sister. But I was like, this placard, along with Harmony saying you gave him his taste for it, referring to
the ether drug,
starting Hampton's ether addiction, was like, okay, so she had some kind of supervisory role, mentory role in the ether mill and was giving these children ether for work production or whatever, I'm sure.
Okay, so you grasped it better than I did because I kept trying to figure out, I was like, what does that mean? Like, but that makes sense if she's giving the kids ether to help them be more productive and keep them on the line and not fatiguing and wearing out. I didn't connect that until you.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that's 100% what it was. And so that makes sense why these 8-year-olds, as we find out later, are huffing ether because they're getting it from their foreman, quote unquote, which clearly Sissy was that in some capacity. That's so messed up.
It is.
That's so messed up. And the fact that she can be so judgy about it, knowing good and doggone well.
It's 100% one of those situations where they didn't know how bad it was as it was happening.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because that's how literally all drugs are, right?
Cocaine, heroin, all of them.
We thought it was going to help this and this and this, and it's being touted as a cure for mankind, and it gives us energy. So if we're selling this to help the people, why not? Why not also give it to our workers?
Thank you for saying that, because I had a note earlier, but I didn't come to it. I was looking up like ether, like as a drug, and what that was all about. And it was saying that ethers are liquid at room temperature and typically colorless with a sweet smell, which would make it more appealing to children, right?
Yeah.
And it says the most common type of ether is diethyl ether, which is extremely flammable and was one of the first anesthetics used in surgery. Obviously, we know that because that's the industry. Due to its anesthetic effects, ether is also used as an illicit drug to induce sedation and euphoria. Side effects could include intoxication, hallucinations, and psychological dependence. So I was looking that up because I was trying to figure out if it may have been the cause of some of the physical effects people are in the town may be feeling, but I think that's just from the factory production of it. Because it seems like ether in and of itself does not cause any physical issues to the body, but it does cause psychological dependence and issues. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm so glad you clarified that for me. I'm still like, yeah, she's the pusher. She's the pusher.
She's the original pusher. Yeah, she's the OG.
The only other thing I wanted to, I have a few other things, but in terms of visuals, remark on how well Patricia Arquette played that moment of basically regressing back to a child when she got slapped by her.
Yeah.
Her face, she looked like a kid who had been hit by their parent.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I felt that. I felt that in my soul. Oh, because it's that whole thing of like, when adults go home to their parents and they always talk about how quickly they become a kid again around their parents. Like you come in there and it's like, I'm an adult. I pay bills. And then all of a sudden around your parents, you're just like, yes, ma'am. No, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that was the face that came through in that moment. Because she could have easily just reared up or looked, how dare you or whatever, but she just diminished and then just like lowered her eyes and was like, I can't even look up.
Right.
And it just made me think, how many times has that girl gotten smacked by this woman in her childhood? Like the default position.
Probably. Oh my gosh, probably all her life. You know what is funny is I was like, someone finally slapped someone, because how many times have you said like, this person looked like they were about to slap this person. I thought this person would have to get slapped. And then I was like, oh, someone got slapped.
It finally happened.
I definitely didn't think it was going to be Cobel who got slapped.
Right? Thought she would be doing the slapping.
Right.
So, okay, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The part where she tells Harmony that she can't open the door because she says like that door has to stay shut until all who knew her sit with Kier.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, has Harmony not been in this room? Like, has Harmony even been home since her mother passed? Because it seems like they just locked that room up and was just like, no go.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting because I was like, so the room just stays closed? Is it like a disease thing? Is it a ceremonial thing? And like all who knew her, that's a lot of dang people. Like, who's going to open the door? Like, nobody will be around.
Well, Yeah, I thought on this for a long time when I saw your question, and I decided it is just that her hatred for her is that strong
Mm.
that she didn't want anything to do with it. She didn't even waste her time getting rid of this stuff. And she's like, nobody is going in there. Once everybody who knew her is gone, then she is gone because there's not even going to be anyone left who remembers her.
Oof. Which is also interesting because I feel like this episode is the first time we've heard it just referred to blanketly as the nine rather than like the nine core values or.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. And when you wrote it, I was like, duh. Lives by the nine, in parentheses, lumen core values. I was like, when he said she still lives out by the nine, she still lives by the
By the nine.
nine, I took it as like, oh, out there in the outskirts, she live in a sticks. That's what I
Slang,
thought.
that's
I
what
was
we
like, what is it?
call the nine.
Yeah, I was like, what is the nine? You know, like it's like the six, like Toronto.
You
Like I
said
don't,
that, I was like, that makes sense to think that. I don't know why. I think what made me think it's the nine core values is when he right after said, and everyone in town
everyone.
considers her a
Yeah,
pariah. So I was like, oh.
that makes sense. I don't know why I didn't put it together. When I read it, I was like, oh, duh, Callie. That's silly. Right. So it was at this point when they brought up Wintertide where I was like, okay, a little, even though they didn't mention any specifics in this, just the fact that Wintertide Fellowship has been around since Cobel's time and that she was also a Wintertide Fellow
Right.
made me think of Miss Wong, right? And I was thinking, okay, so one clarification. Miss Wong probably likely just comes from devout Curist family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're assuming that we are now in a time where child labor laws are a little bit better. So she probably didn't get found from the same type of factory situation, but I'm wondering if there is a pre-wintertide fellowship situation or they to our knowledge they don't have like a church, right, but something to the effect of some kind of community something for Kier
Right.
where now they've seen her and maybe they were family was approached and family submitted her to this.
Well, I imagine the Myrtle Egan School is still a thing. So
Maybe.
maybe they have certain type of like community programs or whatever for these
Mm-hmm.
girls to kind of keep an eye on like their values, the nine,
Yeah.
and how they
Right.
work and their work ethic. They probably have just found a more clandestine way to test them in that arena
Yeah.
and then take them into these internships at Lumen. But I
Yeah.
imagine the school probably still exists and they're probably still filtering kids
Mm.
in that way to keep an eye on them. I guess since we're talking about it now, I'll just bring it up. I was like, womp womp, my theory's not going to pan out. I guess she's
No.
just a child, a weird adult like
No.
child.
Yeah. No
Ah,
body
no
snatching
body
here.
swapping, I guess.
Yeah.
But as we'll see later, it kind of makes sense why Miss Huang is the way she is. If she too has come up through the Myrtle Egan Girls School,
Mm-hmm.
they're clearly just raising these kids to be mini adults. Like they
Yeah.
don't get to be children.
Yeah. Right. Because if frolic is one of the four tempers, right, then nothing about childhood is seen as good
That's a good point.
by Kier.
Time to tame that quick, fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. R.I.P. Wintertide body swap theory. Guess they're just weird adult like children. Okay. Anything else you want to bring up?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Next, Harmony runs upstairs straight to Sissy's room and begins to tear it apart. After going through her dresser, Harmony turns around and we see that Harmony isn't the only one with an ornate Kier shrine. We will get into that. Harmony scours the shrine and we see lots of fun goodies. And she finally finds the key in a tiny box behind some type of vine plant on the shrine. Harmony finally gains access to her mother's room where we see it was clearly set up to be a convalescence space. And the hospital bed remains upright, along with an old gas lamp on her nightstand surrounded by various tinctures. The closet still has a few of her sweaters, but they are in tatters. And a single shelf on the right holds an empty vase and a picture of Harmony wearing the same school uniform from the picture that we saw on Harmony's personal shrine in season 1. Harmony surveys the final resting place of her mother with sadness, and this leads her to caress the bed sheets and ultimately connect the breathing tube, which she just like had in her stuff, like on her person. She pulls it out, connects it to the machine that was supporting her mother in her final days. And upon connecting the tube, she lays on the bed, places the throat piece in her mouth, and sobs until she falls asleep. Woo, I was like, man, she going through it, but that's gross. She going through it, but ew. That is so nasty, Harmony.
I had the same. I wanted to be sympathetic. I wanted to be understanding, but I was just like, ew, ew.
Ew. Gross.
You just put that in your mouth. Ew. Who knows what kind of contaminants have been living in that tube for decades.
Right. Also, what has just now she's breathing through it, right? So the tube itself, but also now
Decaying
she's connected it
plastic
back
and
to the machine. So like what else is like
dust in that
grody
machine?
just in-
Literally dust all
Yeah.
over that machine. And she just said, swoop.
Right.
I was like, oh no. Oh no. I love my mama. My mama has passed, but that's the line for me. I will not be imbibing any tubes that have been down any throats and thusly connected into any old machines. No, thank you. There are other ways to connect. But you know, everyone's got to process their grief, how they process it. But I definitely shared your gross reaction. As soon as she started to do it too, I was like, I know she's not going to put that thing in her mouth. Oh, she did it. Oh. I hate it. Okay. All right, let's get into the shrine because I feel like that's really the big thing. As soon as she turned around and you saw it, I was like, another shrine.
There's so much, and there's so much more here than I think was even on Harmony's.
Well, this is a mega devotee, baby. We got lots of stuff here.
Do you want to start with the articles then?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Yeah. So one is the fake paper that Milchek showed Mark in the first episode was based on a paper that actually exists because this is the same paper. And this is an article about when James Egan became Lumen's CEO.
Yes.
So it's like this woman is just continuing to follow the company even much after Harmony has left the nest. The other one is harder to read, but
the open door one?
The open door. Yeah. I'm not sure what that is about.
Yeah. It looks like, you know what it looks like? It looks like one of those tracks you give people, like those kind of like evangelical tracks. You give people like the open door. What is Lumen? Who is Jesus? You know, like it looks like one of those kind of papers. It's like,
you ready to accept Jesus into your life today?
So I'm wondering if that's what it is. Because I'm noticing like all the people that are aligning that little half circle are leading to the open door. So I was like, this looks like one of those.
Right. And it's
tracks.
It's like that painting again that keeps coming up where it's like there's people en masse going to the Lumen or
the Lumen Haven. Yeah. There's another one, right? But I couldn't read that one that was like up in that top left corner. I tried to get
I didn't even
zoomed
see
in on
that one. Yeah.
But it looks older and like the image in it looks almost like the watchtower, that whole bit. So I was like trying to get clear.
Yeah. And there's a picture of a man, but just the little profile doesn't seem like anyone we have seen already.
Okay. So the thing that caught my eye were all these little patches. Like some of them she had hanging on that hanger with the clothespins, and then others were sewn onto that banner at the top of the wall. And I was able to zoom in on some of them, and they'd say like it was all that year of whatever. So like year of Wiles, year of
the 9 values.
Yeah. But they're all different colors, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what they signify. It almost is giving the vibe of Girl Scout patches. Like
I was just gonna say, I think it's like a Girl Scout badge thing where for whatever the goal or the theme of that year was, if they achieved it. And I thought, because there's 2, my thought was these are all hers and Harmony's.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I didn't think about that.
She did talk about how like she tried to guide her and like she tried to have her follow in her footsteps, right? So like all of these, all of these things. There's 2 of each, so all of these things Sissy achieved, and then she made sure Harmony
got too.
The same achievements.
That makes sense. That does make sense. Okay. There's some other clippings. There's another one on the far right that says work-life balance, I think is what it's going to say. So probably again, I know another type of propaganda EQ article that's like how to establish
severance.
Yeah. Creepiest part of the shrine. Award goes to the weird tempers.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they're all sitting on an upside down like little mini goblets.
Yeah.
You know, glasses. And I'm like, why are they on that?
I thought at first that they were like candles in a glass candle stand. And then when I realized that it wasn't, I was like, no, those are definitely just paper mache figures. But I couldn't, like you said, figure out why. Maybe because she didn't have nice stands to put them on. So she just repurposed glassware. I don't know.
guess.
But why do those things always have to look so weird?
They're
Why?
so creepy. Yeah. And I don't understand what the obsession with the paper mache is either, because Harmony had some paper mache stuff on her
She sure
one,
did.
right? The masks that they actually wear
In the waffle party.
Yeah, they're paper mache in the waffle party. Yeah. What is that about?
There has to be a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but
yeah.
we also see some little individual pages that are like the different like sayings that we hear. So like one of them is the "we must be cut to heal."
Yeah.
There's another one that I couldn't quite read or make out.
There's one that I don't know if we can see the whole thing, but the thing that the earth something serve anew, like part of it is cut
the
off.
earth serve anew, but I don't know what that is.
I think some of it is cut off, and then
the next
we have another one cut
have
off.
the courage
or something courageously or something.
Yeah.
Something.
Have the blank courageously. It could be that too. Yeah. And then we also have the 9 values laid out in what look like tarot cards.
It does.
Which I found interesting.
Very weird.
And then it's like surrounding some little centerpiece that maybe looks like it's made of bone. Do you think?
What do we think that is?
I don't know.
It kind of looks like, except for that, the point coming out is too long. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is of an animal, but it looks like one singular vertebrae.
As soon as you started saying that, I was like, oh, I see it. You're right. I think you're right. I think it is like part of a spinal cord.
Maybe it's one from an animal.
I think it is.
Yeah, but I don't know why.
That's the lifeline to the brain. I mean, maybe that was the old way they thought. You know how like tempers, they thought that had to do with the bile in the blood and blah, blah, blah. Maybe they figure the spinal cord is the ascension of the values or the ascension of the tempers.
They're trying to figure out, jumping ahead before Cobel figured out severance and trying to, maybe it was an idea that they were striving for before they had a way, were they like paralyzing people? We're like cutting out spinal cords.
Possibly.
Trying to figure out which vertebrae is going to be the right one.
That'd be crazy. Or maybe they did something like acupuncture where they tried to like pinpoint parts of the spine. Like this is connected to your woe temper.
That would make more sense. Yeah.
It could have been that. Listen, archaic things were going on. This is from the 1800s.
I like your idea a lot better.
They could have started with pulling out spinal cord pieces and was like, that didn't work. Maybe
I'm just so confused by this thing being on her shrine, really.
Everything about this shrine feels like there's weird parts of like mysticism, Gnosticism, culticism, and also a little bit Scientology stuff. Like there's a lot of these mixed ideologies in here. And so, seeing that laid out, I was like, that's wild. So they have some form of tarot, but it's all based around the 9. So do they have like tarot formats where they lay the cards out and it's supposed to predict a certain, this is also pulling us right back to Agatha BTW.
Yes, it is.
And the same episode, but clearly there's a purposeful layout to this.
Right.
But I'm so glad that you figured out that it's a vertebrae piece, because that's
what it looks like the most to me. But it also, again, it doesn't look the shape of a human vertebrae.
It's probably not. Oh, it's probably a goat.
A goat.
It's from a goat spine.
I'm about to Google what a goat spine looks like. Also, the texture of this made me think of craft. So I'm wondering if maybe this is a recreation of a vertebrae. And that's why it doesn't look exactly it, because it's still very vertebrae.
It also looks like it could have been like clay constructed too. So maybe it is a mold.
Yeah.
This is all to say, people, that they're doing weird stuff.
Right. They'd just be crafting. Why?
That should be one of the 9 crafts. One must be crafty. So were there any other than the cure face and the little flowery vine plant thing that's on there? I didn't see much else that really stood out.
Yeah. Way off on the left side, there's another like pot looking thing that also has one of those cards behind it. And it looks like the same value cards. So whatever that value is, I don't know, but it's behind it. And then there's a letter written in cursive that's framed. And there's no way to tell what that is. I don't know what that is, but a letter from somebody.
Yeah, likely from the Egans, I'm sure. Yeah. And then I did see that there is that kind of like cross-stitched vignette yet again of the tempers.
Oh, yes.
So that's the shrine, guys. It's so bizarre.
It is.
Um, okay. I think we have torn this shrine to bits, at least
Okay.
as much as we can with the fine tooth comb that we've got. All right, let's keep it going, unless you've got anything.
No.
Cool. All right. So we see some hours have passed as Harmony is knocked out on the bed, and then a disruption is heard in the background when the old familiar barges into the room saying he came to get Harmony because it's getting cold in the truck and he needs to get back. Harmony says, I have to find it, and asks for a moment to think. While Harmony composes herself, the man states that he liked her mother. Harmony said he hardly knew her, but he replied that she hated Lumen more than he did, and that was enough. The two exchange smiles, and then Harmony's old friend slyly asks if she wants to get high. He then pulls out the green ether bottle and sprinkles it onto a towel. He deeply inhales it, kind of snorts, sniffles, and then starts to chuckle. And then he hands it over to Harmony, little toke pass. And Harmony, to our surprise, does indeed take it and do the same. She mentions that she hasn't done this since she was 8 years old. And the friend responds half jokingly, you ready to man the vat for 10 hours? Clearly, this is where ether addiction began for many in the town. Harmony gives him a look that's flirtatious, ? And he eyes her right back, but doesn't initiate. So it's on Harmony, who takes the lead to lean in and kiss him. They part, and there's a bit of despondence in the man's face, maybe sad over what could have been. He then says, I don't think it's here, whatever you're looking for. Harmony pauses, then states she wouldn't throw it away. I kept trying to figure out what the heck she was looking for this whole time. And just like this little moment too, where everything's just like coded language. It's like, what the heck is she looking for? What is she looking for?
Couldn't have figured it out. I think at this point I was like, man, this episode's so short. I'm not even gonna waste my brain power trying to
It'll be here before we know it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's coming. Whatever it is, it's coming. But there was no way could have guessed what it was. This right here was the realization that Sissy lied when she told her she sold everything.
Exactly.
She's like, no, she was lying. She didn't sell it.
Exactly.
It's here somewhere.
Sidebar. When Sissy said that she sold it to the poor, I was like, sold it to the poor?
To the poor.
That already told me a lie. Because I'm like, you don't sell things to the poor. You sell them or you give them away to the poor. You don't sell to the poor. And it made me think of Rickon's obsession with the poor too. When he's
Yes, I was just going to say that, Rodnesha. I was like, it sounded very Rickon.
Don't worry, I sold them to the poor. They will have plenty of your bed sheets for years to come. Yeah, it was giving me that vibe for sure. I visually loved the use of the lantern in the scene because it gave just enough warmth to the center of their faces, and everything else was still very blue around them.
Yeah.
You know, there was an intimacy to it, but then it also was a humanizing element to these two characters, right? Like both of them have been dehumanized by this process, this town, this factory, Lumen, all of it.
Yeah.
So then you see that little hearth of humanity kind of glowing from the center of their face, but they're still very much defined and edged by the coldness of this freaking industry that has ruined their lives. So that's what made me think when he had that moment where he just kind of looked like he couldn't even be excited about kissing her because it's just like, it's just all sad. Like this town robbed us of everything. Yeah. And I can't even be excited this is happening because I don't know if they've ever kissed before. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't.
Yeah. And thinking back about our conversation earlier about just like why she just knew that he was going to help her. She was still a child when she left. So maybe there was always just like a puppy love thing and he just followed her around and she just knew.
Yeah. If she left at 13, like, or heading into 13, then yeah, they probably would have been too young to really explore that. But oh, that does suck. God, I'm still thinking too now about what you said, that she was doping these kids up every day to work. That's so messed up. That's so messed up.
Especially, right. And so this line confirmed it for me, right? Where they take it and then he's like ready to man the vat for 10 hours. I was like, yep, that's exactly what's happening. They were getting high to get through the day.
Much like you with the nines line. I don't know why that didn't occur to me after hearing that. Because I understood that they obviously were getting high to work. But I thought that just them or maybe the kids would all just like sneak ether to just get through the day. Not that someone was actually like feeding it to them to make them productive.
I think Sissy was doing that, which again, brings up with like, you are so righteous. Get off your high horse, woman. If like, how can you judge him for being addicted to it when you had a hand in it?
So messed up. Ugh. This is just a random actory question. I was wondering what they used on the towel because I feel like they did use something only because what's his name's nose was like kind of runny when he pulled it away.
Oh, and so I was maybe like
something fumey must have been in there to like kind of
Yeah,
trigger.
maybe like those maybe like Vicks or like those
Mm,
boomstick things
that makes
to
sense.
clear your
That would make sense.
sinuses.
I was wondering if maybe it was like some essential oil, something like maybe
Oh,
lavender or like eucalyptus or something. So it could be like, oh,
you know
like a
what? I
turmeric.
wouldn't put it past Patricia Arquette to be like, can we get a bit of lavender for
I
this?
thought the same dang thing. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised her towel. She was like, I would love it. I would love it. It's just a little blend of lavender, like 2/3 lavender and 1/3 eucalyptus, and I'll
Yes.
be right there.
Did you watch the Hot Ones versus with her
Yes,
and Adam Scott? Yeah. So
yes,
she requested like literally just went on the internet,
that's right. She
found
did.
anything she could find, the entire list of
She's like,
things
I
to
would like some
combat
milk.
the
I would like some
hotness.
this. Yep.
She's like,
Ice cream was
well,
one
the
of them, I think.
internet said this. Just bring it all out. Just at one point, she's just like, just bring it all.
I love that so much. I love her
Uh,
so much. Prepared in all seasons for every occasion.
Wonderful.
Anything else?
No, that was it. Ah, okay, here we go. Harmony and friend head out of the house with lanterns toward the detached underground cellar, and she enters the cellar alone. She forges through the shelves and boxes, pulling out a yearbook, or as it's titled, an annual reminiscence.
Mm,
And of course,
of course.
and the year is very smartly concealed in the shot, so
Ooh,
we
I
still
looked.
can't do any math and confirm. Yeah,
Mm.
I looked too. I was like, God dang it. Um, but Harmony keeps looking around, and then she finds a bust that reads James Egan, Wintertide Fellowship, Harmony Cobel, Year of Wiles. Wiles.
Wiles.
Wiles.
Wiles.
And she finds a screwdriver and she pops open the bottom of the bust to retrieve from inside it an old spiral bound notebook. She exits the storm cellar and she tells her friend, get in the truck, get ready. She hands him the bust while she heads back inside. And so she re enters the house as Sissy is feeding the stove more wood and tells her that she's leaving and not to tell anyone that she was there. Sissy replies by stating that she will not tell lies to any steward of the Egans. This angers Harmony, and she asserts that Lumen destroyed this town and Sissy owes them no loyalty. But Sissy responds by telling her that they built this town, they employed her, and so she better apologize for what she's done. And so Harmony then explodes, saying, mine. And she flips through the notebook and reveals that she, in fact, invented the severance chip and all of its functions that we have seen so far. And Sissy takes the notebook and begins to flip through it. When asked why she never said anything sooner, Harmony said that she was taught that Kier's knowledge is for all, and that if she sought credit, she would be banished. Sissy thinks on this for a beat, then reaches for the stove and attempts to throw the notebook into the fire. But Harmony thinks fast and retrieves it from her before it's too late. Sissy then drops a bombshell that it was her mother who pulled her own tube out, not her, and she called her a coward filled with malice and resentment. And despite her attempt to help Harmony grow, she is just like her mother. So just as Harmony is about to have more words for her aunt, her old friend honks the horn and warns that someone is coming and they need to go. So Harmony runs out of the house and hops into the truck, and the old friend stays behind. And before she drives off, she just says his name, Hampton. He quickly smirks and says, I'll see you around. Without hesitation, Harmony speeds away. As Harmony drives off, she gets another call from Devin, which she finally answers. And Devin informs her that Mark has been reintegrated and she and Mark want to try something else. And Harmony asks to speak with Mark and says to him, tell me everything.
Boy, oh boy, what a finish.
Uh-huh.
What a finish.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we'll jump back up to our little cave foraging discovery moment.
Yeah.
This is what was teased in all the trailers. We were like, is she in an underground cave? Is she in the mountains? Where is she?
Yeah.
She's in a cellar.
Yeah.
But a very important cellar, but a cellar nonetheless. So yeah, what did they say? The annual reminiscences. I was like, golly,
Yeah.
you just can't say anything. Yearbook, just yearbook. How hard is that? How hard is that? Annual reminiscences is even harder to say.
Right.
And more words.
They just gotta be different.
Oh, geez. Okay, so in the yearbook, I was able to get a close up. There's not a lot that it says, but it's just, kind of interesting. And I feel like so much of this episode just informs who we know Harmony to be, right? Like,
yeah,
this cold town, this hard place. It's like, oh, I understand now why she is the way she is.
Yes.
So the little part that says valedictorian, Harmony Cobel. So clearly, again, smartest, brightest in her class.
Overachiever.
Harmony Cobel, a beacon of academic excellence and leadership, something blurred. Hey guys, Rodnesha from the Edit Bay. Okay, listen, we spent way too much time trying to stumble through this blurb. I meant to write it out beforehand. That's my bad. I have it now, so I'm going to go ahead and read it to you directly. This is what it says under Harmony's valedictorian page. Harmony Cobel, a beacon of academic excellence and leadership, leaves an indelible mark on the year of Wile's graduating class. Throughout her high school journey, she exhibited unwavering commitment to her academic pursuits, confidently achieved top grades, and meandered challenging subjects. Beyond the classroom, Harmony actively engaged in extracurricular activities, leading the field hockey team as captain, and acting as president of the Goat Husbandry Club. We celebrate Harmony's journey not only for individual brilliance, but also for the positive influence and inspiration she has imparted on both her peers and educators alike. So that's pretty much what it says. No more stumble fumble. Let's just go ahead and get on with the rest of the show. See ya. So that was one page. So then the other side of the page, we see a photo of her with a young James Egan, and it's called the James Egan Wintertide Fellowship. I love that he is holding a bust of himself, which is crazy. And then there is another frame where we get a better close-up of the byline underneath that page. And it says, during a special ceremony, James Egan presented Harmony Cobel with the prestigious Wintertide Fellowship. Harmony Cobel's outstanding dedication to the 9 core values has earned her the distinguished honor of being selected as the Year of Wile's Wintertide Fellow. This achievement not only acknowledges something as Harmony's exceptional academic pursuits, but also recognizes her blank embodiment of the Egan principles that form the foundation of the culture for the Egan School of Girls. You know, all accolades really, but just kind of nice to read and see.
Yeah.
But it all just speaks to, like you said, her overachievementness.
Yeah. Back to the Wintertide Fellowship, because I didn't connect that this was senior year of high school.
Right.
So I wonder, this combined with the fact that Milchek said to Miss Wong, he's the one who determines if she's Wintertide material, that she's not in the fellowship yet. She's in something pre, right? So she's teenage-ish something. So why isn't this girl in school?
Because this is school.
This is the school, right? So she's doing some work study situation.
If her parents have put her in the Egan School for Girls, because they're either curious or they just think it's a cool private school, I don't know. But if she's in that school, then that's probably just part of the school tract. It's like the education is the work, right? Because the work is mysterious and important. So part of your educational foundation is to go to Lumen and learn to work.
Yeah.
Which again is crazy, but makes sense if they've just put her in this weird academy thinking this is how it's supposed to go. Now, obviously, we've gotten to the point where we reveal the truth of Harmony's true history with Lumen and basically Severance, all her. And so seeing her being photographed with James Egan in this fellowship, much like we said with Gemma, I'm like, have they been eyeing her this whole time, knowing that she had this like brilliant mind for this technology? She probably was constantly coming to them with like, oh, I've come up with this idea. She's probably doing proposals in school about it and papers and And they're like, oh yeah, keep on trucking up those ideas. Oh yeah, we'll make you a fellow. You know what? As a fellow, it is your duty to share this information with us, right?
Right.
And I also wonder, because James looks pretty, well, I guess he's not that young because he's obviously clearly much older than Harmony. He looks like he's about to die. But in that photo, he looks closer in age to her than in real life.
He does look closer in age to her.
But it makes me wonder, like, did he mentor her and then steal her ideas? Was it him or was it the whole family? Like, was it his way of trying to get ahead?
Yeah, this made me wonder if we're going to see confrontation
between her and James.
A scene with, a present day. Ooh. I'm wondering.
Before he keels over and revolves.
Lord.
Yes, I would love to see that now.
Yeah, I also wonder too, what comes next of this? Because I'm sure they have a clause, or like the expected response, I think, from any company would be like, well, you did this under our fellowship you were working for us. So this is all proprietary. So you didn't do shit. This is still us.
Without our resources, you wouldn't even have this proposal. So really, it's thanks to us. So yeah. So I wonder if they even bothered to make it legal. And it just makes me think
Yeah.
too of that scene from season 1 where James is talking to Helly and he's like, remember when I brought home the first severance chip and you said it was the most beautiful thing in the world and everyone should have one. I was like, thief,
Blue and green lights. Yeah, you
thief,
thief.
you stole it. You stole it.
You phony. You big
You're
fat
phony.
phony. And I really wish we had a year on this yearbook, right?
I know.
Because I just had another thought. I'm wondering, we talked about it seemed like Cobel may have been fast tracked to her position heading up the severance floor. So I'm wondering if, this is when she created it. However, much time from, concept to actual fruition, right?
True.
Has to be several years, decades later, right? Because Helly was a child when the first prototype came home. So I'm wondering at this point, she's already working in Lumen.
Yeah.
And then it comes out, and then it's like, Jane Egan invented a breakthrough. And then she's like, Jane Egan, what? And they're like, oh, you're not going to say anything
but it's okay. Concession. You can run the floor.
Exactly.
See, it's okay because we'll put you in charge of it. So you'll just have a hand in it.
And did Grainer know this?
Oh.
I wonder if Grainer is the one person who knew the truth.
Oh, I didn't even think
was
that.
Holding that secret with her.
I was going to say it now makes sense why she was so adamant about running the severed floor.
Yeah.
With Helena. When they had that debate, it's like, because I know this floor inside, I designed this floor. And the fact, I wonder if Helena even knows the truth about that.
I don't think so. Probably I thought that too, because it made me think back to her being like, I think you have overestimated your contributions and underestimated your blessings. Overestimated my contributions by you have underestimated my contributions. So I don't think she knows.
No, either she knows and is gaslighting her or doesn't. But like either way, that whole conversation now you can look at in a totally different light in light of this information. It's like now it makes so much more sense why Cobel felt so entitled to just run up and demand and why she said like, you fear me and all this stuff. It's like she knows I hold the true cards to this. Y'all have nothing without my technology, nothing. Yeah. And I've had to bite my tongue and bide my time and I'm not doing it no more. So you either give me what I want or I'm talking. And now it makes sense why she made that first trek, but then maybe backtracked it and thought maybe she could just like, kind of force them into her direction. And then she finally was like, okay, fine, let me go get the goods. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, let me go get the proof.
It just all makes so much more sense now in light of this. I had no idea this was the trigger they were going to pull. None.
Right.
Mind blown. And not even like, if you look at all the little screenshots of the designs and stuff, it's like, she understands the science behind the brain stuff. She's got all these like physics graphs and things that I don't understand because I'm not sciencey. And this also made it make sense why she knew where to retrieve the chip from Petey.
Exactly. Where
she knew exactly where in the brain to place it. I was like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, it explains so much.
It's wild. And it also makes sense now, the little graphic in the title sequence, right? Her opening the book. It's like, it's her book.
Yeah.
This is all her. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I put in the notes, Jamie Egan's a fraud. He's a fraud and I don't appreciate it. And I don't appreciate him. And I knew I didn't like this family. They're a bunch of frauds, just co-opting people's work like billionaires always do. Just going back to the scene with her and Sissy. First off, again, Jane Alexander.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Eating this role. Eating. Snacking it up. That lady just reminded me of every creepy old lady you've seen in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Every old school marm that has a ruler that you just want to give her the, like she just embodied all of it. And the minute freaking Harmony handed her that book, I said, no, are you? She's going to burn it. She's going to burn it.
You just got a bad feeling even with them like hovering on the fire to begin with before we got the reveal of what it was. Right. And then as soon as she said what it was, I was like, oh, she gonna. And then I was like pointing at the TV like, Harmony,
I did the same thing. I did this.
And I'm so glad that she was able to retrieve it, right? Because it being destroyed is like such a trope, right? That, you had it, but it was thrown in the fire. So now we don't have it. And now what you gonna do? But I'm glad that she has it.
Instantly thought of Knives Out too, with that final scene where Janelle Monáe's character has the prototype, the original design. Because this is the same thing. Like I have the original proof that shows that this is my intellectual property. And Homeboy said, swoop in flames. And I was like, no!
Oh God, no!
It's all gone. And so as soon as I saw them hovering around that fire with the notebook, I was like, I know they're not.
Right.
I'll scream. I'll scream and throw this TV out the window if they burn this book up. Fortunately, they didn't, so I didn't have to do that. But oof. Good thing she's a frail old lady and she just pushed her over and grabbed
Right. She was like, lady. Yeah, she wasn't moving fast enough. I went, oh, good. I
Oh,
wish she had knocked her down completely. Break
I
your
would have
hip,
knocked her
lady.
over. I would have fully knocked her over and left her. Bye.
Yeah, she did say, I hope you die.
Oh, I was going to try to read all the little scratches and notes in the notebook, but honestly, it's just indicating like this does this and this goes here. It wasn't anything monumental. The bits that I could read, it
Right.
was nothing like super definitive that's like, oh, this is a clue to maybe how you can. Because I think I was trying to see if there was some way you could like extract the chip that she maybe knew how to do. And she may know how to do it, might be in there. Like maybe there is some way to reintegrate or retrieve the chip, or maybe there isn't. I don't know.
It makes me go back to everything that Ragabi has been doing, and that because she is able to do all of this stuff, we surmise that she had a hand in
Oh,
like
in the
the
design.
actual creation and design. But now I'm like, no, she is just backwards engineering this thing, which explains a whole lot more of why she's so unsure, and and she's just faking it till she makes it through all of this stuff.
And it makes sense why the fails have happened. It's like, shoot,
Mhm.
in theory, this should work. Or in theory,
Yeah,
like I understand the
yeah,
base principle of how this does what it does. And like you said, should be able to
right.
reverse engineer it.
Yeah. And I think possibly also because Harmony is the only person who truly, truly knows how it works because it came from her brain. That's why she was the only person who was able to recognize that PD was reintegrated and that it
Mm,
was possible because
everything
she's
makes
the only person
sense
who
now.
knows that it is possible. Yeah.
Everything makes sense. Cobel, all the things make sense now. It's like, I know what to look for.
Hmm.
I know what the signs are. I know what it can and can't do.
Yep.
And then she's having to eat from all these people
Hmm.
in this company because she has to act like she doesn't know it and that she didn't make it.
Right. Yeah.
Woof, boy,
Yeah.
she's better than me. I mean, I would have been a mean too if I
Right.
was having to constantly day after day just be like, but I'm the one. Whew, okay, three, two,
Yeah.
one, 1, 2, 3. What the heck is bothering me? You are bothering me. Like I would have had a hard time.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't have to take it out on any throwing staplers and mugs and stuff, but I
Right.
understand the frustration of working for a company who steals from you.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to rewatch the whole
Yes.
series again with this information in mind because now I'm thinking again about us talking about like how in the world could they think that they could possibly let her go with her having the knowledge that she has about what has gone on the severed floor. But Jamie is still alive and on the board. How could he let her go knowing that she created? Yeah.
I honestly think that they thought we pushed her around once before, we can push her around again. I think once they got the proprietary information from her the first time with no fight, then they probably were like, we'll just keep pulling the same stunt. Like, we'll just keep doing it again. I mean, it's hubris.
Yeah, except not anymore if you fired her.
Right. Well, here's what's wild. The first time they fired her, she was just going to kind of go gently into the good night, right? Like she didn't fight it. She went home and wailed in front of her shrine and was probably just going to sit there and have a pity party until Mark invited her to that book party. But like she didn't immediately go home and pack her bags to make a trip to Salt's Neck. I mean, maybe eventually she might have gotten
Yeah,
there.
she was still processing.
But it still took her a while to finally pull the trigger, even knowing what she knows, right? But that's cult mindset, right? Like you just surrender your stuff because greater good and whatever they tell you.
Yeah.
Oof. But yeah, we finally get Hampton's name right at the end. It's like, bye, Hampton. Thanks. Seem like a nice guy. Get off that ether.
Right.
They need to establish an AA in Salt's Neck. I'm so bummed. I know we're not going to come back here. I know we're not going to see this place ever again.
No, there's no reason.
And I want to know so much more. Like, I'd love to get some kind of flashback to a different point in time where we see the town maybe thriving under Lumen and how impacts are starting to occur in the town as it's forming, but it's not fully fried. But I know we're not going to get that. I know that's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. It's one of those things that I want from the show that I'll never get.
Yeah, I mean, and if we do, it won't be these actors, right? It'll be children.
True. Side note, I was wondering this while doing notes. Do you think that, because this is my headcanon, that Harmony's mother worked for Lumen and that's how she got sick?
Oh, I think it's definitely possible. I think also she was a curist at some point and then got sick and saw how zealoty her sister had become and how they were pushing her daughter towards that. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
made her pendulum swing the opposite direction.
That's what I'm thinking. Cause I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if she, like you said, she was a curist, very into it in the beginning, either got sick from the company, from the factories, whatever, tried to beseech Lumen about it. And they basically was like, not my problem. And that's when she started to have, you know, the scales fall a bit about the reality. And that was probably like the beginning of the end for her. But then she's slowly deteriorating. So there's not a lot you can do at that point. And you're seeing, like you said, your daughter being indoctrinated, but you can't really stop it. Well, that's gotta suck. You know what I think happened? This is another headcanon thing with the tube. When her aunt said that she pulled the tube from herself, I was like, I wonder if she was just shut in that room all day, and then the only time she got to see anyone was Sissy coming in preaching at her the goodwill of Kier, and she probably was like, you know what, I'd rather die. I'd rather die than hear you say one more word about this man and his fraudulent family and their fraudulent ways, and he's responsible for everything horrible in my life. I'd rather die.
Agreed. And she's like, I'm never going to see my daughter again because she hasn't been back there since she was 12.
That's the saddest part. And then Callie, think about this. Again, if they close that room off, she's gone at school. Her mom dies at some point while she's at school. I don't know at what point it happens. I don't know if it's like early on, later, when she graduates. I assume it's before she graduates because she can't get back home.
Yeah.
Did they mail her that breathing tube? Did they just say, here's something to remember her by? Sorry, she passed. Here's a little...
Rodnesha.
How else did she get it?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Why does she have the breathing tube?
I think they sent it to her as like a token to remember your mother by or something.
That's the only explanation. And what the...
Yeah. I think they sent it to her as a way to show, like, obviously it's not in her body, so she's dead. Here you go. So sorry for your loss. I think that's what happened. And that's crazy.
They could have sent her a necklace or something.
Proof of life or death, rather. I know. It's terrible. It's awful.
I wonder if it was Sissy herself who did it.
Probably. Absolutely.
That's why she thinks like you pulled this from her gullet, as she said, and then sent it to me.
Absolutely. It was Sissy.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else we want to say about this final scene? I mean, we know she's heading back to Mark.
Two things, actually. So one, you know, I love Hampton's final line of like,
oh yeah,
come tame these tempers.
That was great.
And then I'm like, he's about to die, right? Yeah, he's about to get...
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
You know, they're about to come get him.
And then he's ready to die.
Yeah, I think he's done.
Oh, no, I hate it.
This is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to him. He's happy to go out like this.
No, I hate it. Oh, I hate it.
Yeah. I just had that thought as I was saying it. But the other thing was just to go back to, you know, the criticism of it being like a filler episode. This episode was so needed because obviously we need the bombshell dropped at some point. It had to happen somewhere, some way. And, you know, it wouldn't really make sense for it to be revealed without a backstory. But also, we needed this episode to humanize Harmony more before what is about to happen, right? Because we know what's coming next. She's about to help Mark and Devin. And before this episode, there's no way I could get behind that. There had to be some more softening, and they've tried to do it a little bit up until this point, but we had to know a lot more about her in order for next week to make sense.
Yeah. Is it weird that I still don't 100% trust Harmony?
Oh, no, not. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. She can't be trusted. But
I get what you mean with the humanizing thing. Like, we need to understand her motivations. We need to know.
Yeah, we can't be like hating her the entire time she's helping the person we need her to help.
Right. Yeah.
So we had to have a little more information first.
Eesh.
Yeah, I don't trust her. Absolutely not. You can't trust anyone, though. That's what we've been taught. You can't trust anyone.
You're right.
You can't.
It's true. But we've got 2 episodes left. So we're fast tracking it now. We are in the end game. And I know the last 2 episodes are going to be the longest of the season. So that'll be fun. But I'm also stressed because there's still a lot we got to figure out. We got to figure out how to get to Gemma. We got to figure out what Irving is doing on the outside. We got to figure out what Bert is doing on the outside. We got to figure out Dylan and his wife and what's going on there.
The innies need to find the testing floor on their own, too.
Yeah.
That's still a mission.
Yep. Oh, that was a clue in the descriptor. I think this coming episode is Helly finding the testing floor. I think she does get down there, or she fly.
Oh, I don't know.
The description said something about Helly going off on her own. So I don't know if she finds the testing floor, but she finds something. I think that's the scene that we saw in the trailer where she goes down that hallway towards a door that looks like it's leading outside. So I wonder if she maybe finds the, what did they call it? Not the training room.
Oh, the team building room.
Team building.
That's where they went.
So I saw someone's theorized that the team building room is where the Woes Hollow happened. So I wonder if she finds her way to the team building room and then realizes that it's a simulation or whatever.
Yeah, we get our Hunger Games arena room.
So I think maybe she heads there.
Team building. That would make sense.
Yeah. I don't know if she ultimately gets to the exports hall, but who knows? Who's to say? But clearly she's going to go off adventuring on her own. And I'm assuming maybe it's because Mark is not going into work quite yet.
Yeah, that might be the little backtrack that we get, is these days without Mark.
Oh, guys, I don't know what to expect, but it's going to be an action-packed episode. I'm certain of it. It's also probably going to stress me all the way out. But yeah, so to reiterate, guys, I think this was a great episode. I don't think it was filler at all. I think it was very necessary information, and I think it was very informative. I think it's just as important to have episodes that build characters and help flesh them out and still moves the plot forward. Like, people are acting like this was just like a little side quest, whatever, that's going to mean nothing and matter to no one and have no resonance. This moves the plot forward, people. This is not filler.
Like leaps and bounds forward. Again, it's the biggest lore drop. I hold that this reveal is way bigger than the Miss Casey Gemma reveal, because you can go back and find
piece together
things that pointed to that.
Yes.
I cannot go back. I've been racking my brain for clues that this was the reason, this was what her torch for Lumen was about. And it's not. We theorize so many other reasons why she either had a secret agenda to take Lumen down or why she was gunning for the top of Lumen. This was not even close to anything we have theorized.
No, but it will inform everything we have seen up to this point.
Everything.
So yeah, y'all are tripping. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for this episode. Let's do some call to action. We are on the socials, and we would love for you guys to come find us. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade at the UUR Pod. You can also email us, which some folks have been starting to do, and that's been really fun.
Yes, that's exciting.
Email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. We will answer those emails. You can also, if you would like, become a patron. We are at patreon.com/theuurpod. Take a gander at what we've got. You can opt to join the Severed Floor or find whatever membership tier works for you. But this is where you will find the extended cut episodes, early access to bonus content. And if nothing else, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you find it. We are pretty much available everywhere now, and we would love a review. We would love a 5-star rating if stars are what they're using. If not, we'll take 5 thumbs up. We'll take 5 frog hops. I don't know all the stuff, but just whatever is the best or good. The important thing is that the better the reviews are, the more engagement we get, the more it gets out there to other people, and we can build our community up and find other fellow Sebbies who would love to engage with our content.
Yes.
But that's pretty much it. We will see you guys next time for episode 9, The After Hours. Are we about to make another OTC venture? Who knows? Who knows?
Ooh, who knows? And with that, this has been the UUR. And remember, here's knowledge is for all.
Except James Egan, he sucks.
He sucks.